If you're like me, you've got contacts in every single possible format. Email, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And it's becoming harder and harder to stay on top of them. To help me make sense of this mess, I use Smarter Contacts, the free app that automatically creates rich profiles for all my contacts right on my smartphone. The thing I love most about this app are the rich profiles it creates. I can see photos, job titles, company details, and updates from social networks all in one place, all in context. This is a free app and available on all mobile platforms. Head to www.untether.tv/smarter to download it today. Hey everybody, this is the final part 3 of 3 of this interview with Holger. All right, now what about, so we've talked about internationalization. You guys are growing this across, around the world, and it would be interesting to see that map, how it spreads organically. But what about this concept? You guys are enabling commerce, right? From these devices, you're driving foot traffic into stores. Mm-hmm. Once they're in stores, you're maybe extracting a few extra dollars out of pocket into the store, so you're benefiting them. But what about you guys? Do you think that there's a point in time where Foursquare is an m-commerce, doing transactions and facilitating that?
Yeah, the payment space is obviously very interesting, right? Because I think, payment solutions help, people convert, an action and an intent into an actual kind of monetary transaction. And so, we have, a lot of respect for what some of the companies out there are doing in the payment space. We certainly have a couple, prominent players that are neighbors of ours here in San Francisco, the same thing in New York. I would say we don't have any specific plans right now that I can talk of, but it's certainly something that we're looking at because I'm very bullish on kind of the mobile payment space going forward.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially when you've got that user base and an acceptance already about what it enables them to do. It doesn't seem like it's a far leap to get into the transaction space to facilitate that, and especially when you're partnering with Groupon, right? So how does that all come together? I think I've just been told to. We'll see. Look down the road.
No, I mean, we have partnerships with a number of daily deal providers, including Guild Group and Living Social and so forth. And the way it works there is that actually the actual transaction happens on the partner side. Right. So we're not offering our own partners, our own payment solution. When you act upon a Living Social deal, for example, you have to sign in to Living Social in order to use that. Exactly. But I think more interesting are my favorite example right now is our partnership with American Express. Right, the ability for you to tie your Foursquare account to your American Express card, and then American Express being able to surface American Express specific offers from American Express merchants that tell you, hey, go down to this deli, and if you pay with your Amex card, you get $5 off. Yeah. And when you go there and you unlock the deal, you pay with your credit card, and before the waitress comes back with your credit card bill, you already have a notification in the application that says, hey, on your next credit card bill, you will have $5 rebate against this $10 purchase. That's magic, right? Yeah. Because nothing had to happen. Like, the redemption process is so simple, and really you haven't done anything on top of just simply paying with your credit card. And in most cases, actually, the staff in the restaurant don't even know. You don't have to do a lot of training because all of this stuff happens on the back end.
That's key, right? I mean, you could have the most elaborate plan, and you can be mayor, but I've walked up to stores as mayor and I said, look, I'm mayor, and look, I get something, and they look at me like I'm insane. Like, get this guy out of my way. What's a mayor? What's Foursquare? I'm in Ottawa, I said, right? But it's 1985 every day here. But when you start to think about that, the automatic redemption, these things are so measurable, right?
Right.
And so I got to ask you, when you're talking about business around this realm, that measurement either just thrills people because they see results, or it scares the hell out of them because they see results, right? This is really the first time you can measure all this stuff.
Right. Yeah, no, we're really excited with the numbers. It's obviously not something that American Express or we can share. Yeah. But I think both parties are really excited about the partnerships and about the results so far. And I think it actually really drives value for everybody involved, right? It's certainly great for American Express because it helps them, have people use their credit card over cash or other credit cards. It helps the local merchant because it helps them drive traffic into their stores, and it helps our users because, it ultimately helps them save some money by using the Foursquare app. So it's kind of a triple win, so to speak.
Does that I don't know if you can answer this, but does it limit your ability to work with all the other credit card companies, MasterCard or any other third-party provider, credit card provider?
No, not necessarily. It's just a matter of, there's only so much you can do with 100 people. That's, I think, the biggest issue.
It's like you're limited, because you start to think about what you can do, and you want to make sure you do everything right, and certainly not half-assed. And I think that's one of the key things that I'm getting from you guys is that you implement to your capacity, and then you let that ebb, and then you bring on the next piece.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've been fairly good about launching baked product.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I'm always amazed at is at what kind of cadence the team is churning out new, functionality and new versions. I think one of the major agencies just recently kind of created a timeline of 2011 for Foursquare, and like the number of milestones and product launches you saw on that milestone on that timeline even surprised me because I've already forgotten all the stuff that we've launched in the first half of last year. Right?
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, just a few more questions, and I got to talk about something like. So, what about NFC? I mean, are you guys you guys look at NFC as an oncoming technology, or do you look at what's here now, like things like QR codes and those kind of things, and how do you bring those in, or do you pull back and wait?
Right. Yeah. So that's always an interesting question, right? Because we are certainly not a big company. So for us to like seed the NFC market is impossible, right? Because we're not in control. We're not in control of the devices coming into market with the NFC chips. We're also too small to seed millions of businesses with NFC chips in the stores. So there is a bit of a wait and see scenario. But that said, the good news is the technology is already there. Our Android app, I think going forward, some of the other platforms will all be NFC enabled. NFC already today works in Android. We've actually piloted this together with Google at Google I/O last year. And so, the user experience is great. You just hold your phone against the tap.
Yep.
The check-in screen automatically pops up with the right venue, and you're basically shaving very valuable seconds off the check-in process. And again, all the check-in pieces are kind of the fundamental data that we use to kind of then help you come up with good local recommendations and so forth. So we are definitely looking at the NFC space. I'm not sure about some of the other technologies. What we usually try to do is leverage kind of native experiences and APIs that are available through the platform, because those usually help drive the best kind of user experience.
Right.
So we're not trying to like add a lot of bells and whistles from kind of outside sources. I guess we're kind of really waiting for more NFC devices to come into market and more NFC chips to be available in stores, but we're ready to leverage this because we feel that, pinpointing down somebody to a certain location through an NFC chip definitely has a lot of value.
All right. Forward thinking a little bit. What about the future? One of the great things that I saw about what Foursquare was doing was allowing me to basically tag articles, right? As I'm, I believe that location is agnostic. I can be standing in a physical location with a longitude and a latitude, or I can be sitting online at a location, which is a website or something to that extent, and to tag that for future reading. So when you start to think about that, what about product discovery and things like that are inanimate objects? I'm at a Best Buy or something like that, and it's about product discovery. Or where do you hope Foursquare goes? What's the next 12 months look like for you guys?
Right. Well, I think the one thing that we are very much focused on is kind of your physical location and how you and your friends kind of interact in that physical location and kind of where the interesting, exciting things around you are. Yep. We've always, we've been asked many times, whether we would kind of get into the media check-in space or in the product check-in space. I think those are all, exciting areas in themselves, but we really want to focus on the location space because that's where our experience is in, that's where our expertise is in, and also I personally actually feel that there's not one social graph that will rule them all. There will be, different groups of friends that you will have maybe to share your location and maybe to share, kind of your media consumption or your, what products you're interested in. So, we're really not so much focused on, kind of product check-ins or that type of stuff. What I do want to say, though, is you just mentioned a super exciting product that is one of my favorite things is Save to Foursquare. The ability, and now we have major media companies in the US and soon to come in elsewhere internationally, offering a Foursquare Save to Foursquare button, on websites, on mobile applications and so forth. And every time you have a location that might be of interest, whether it's a New York Times review of a new pizza place in the East Village, or it would be the location for a music event next week Saturday, with Save to Foursquare, you basically now, with the push of a button, have the ability to add that location and add that event to your Foursquare to-do list. And then in the right moment, and when you're near that place, we'll then remind you, like, hey, by the way, you read this article about this recommended restaurant. It's right here. Why don't you go and check it out? I feel
that is, I just got to say, I got to interrupt. Like, Holger, that is an incredible feature. The ability to bridge what I'm doing on my desktop to a location at a further date.
Right.
It's pretty amazing. That's incredible.
I'm completely with you on that. So, but then again, just like Explore and Radar and Lists, the same thing goes for Save to Foursquare. The user will need time to understand these products. They will need to understand, why they're checking in the first place and how that kind of then drives, some of these other functions. And it's just going to take some time, but we're pretty confident that we will tweak the product in the right way, and we're going to continue educating the users so that they will understand this. And I think the numbers kind of speak for that.
So what about competition? A lot of companies kind of sprouted up around this space, and maybe not around competition, but do you look at competition, and or are you just so focused inward on what you're doing that competition comes and goes? You pay attention, but not really. How do they play into you?
Right. I think it would be dishonest to say that we're not looking at what the competition is doing. The question is, like, who is the competition, right? There's kind of the obvious examples of the kind of pure local startups, like a Goala, who's now been, kind of, integrated into absorbed. That was the word I was looking for, into the Facebook team. And I think Josh and their team have done a great job, and I'm sure they're doing great things at Facebook. But then you have the large players like Facebook and Google, but you also have players that are kind of adjacent to us, whether it's the daily deal providers, whether it's some of the mobile payment providers. So we are certainly kind of aware of what's happening in the market, but it kind of comes back to what you mentioned earlier. Actually, it's funny that you just say that. I watched an interview with Dick Costello at All Things D with Peter Kafka earlier today, and he was saying the same thing. Like, if you try to react to what your competition is doing, you're going to be all over the highways. I think what he said, and that's kind of the mantra that we have as well. You can't be overly too concerned of what the competition is doing. You have to kind of execute on your own roadmap and on your own plans, and that's what we're doing. But yeah, it's certainly super interesting. And what the competition is doing, and quite frankly, as in pretty much all industries, there's room for many players, right? And yeah, I think it's kind of exciting on what the other guys are doing.
Well, I love that because it's so apropos for what you guys are doing. You guys invented this space, and so I wouldn't be looking at the competition. And there's a lot of talk around, is Foursquare going to move into local deals and kind of be a part of that business? And based on this conversation, you don't have to answer that, but based on this conversation, my inclination would be that no. That you guys are quite happy with partnering with the guys who are doing that local deals, but it just seems like you guys are so focused on what you need to do that you're not even thinking about integrating a business that exists today.
I don't want to take away anything from the kind of excitement of what's going to come with Foursquare. Yeah. But we have very, very clear plans, and because of the kind of emergence of a daily deal industry, that's not going to change kind of how we, want to execute kind of our roadmap over the next 12 months, right? So you're absolutely right.
You guys don't have startup ADD. You guys are clearly, one of the biggest challenges with a young startup is that there's so much that you could do. So why don't you do it? And that's where you start to lose yourself. And it doesn't sound like Foursquare has that challenge.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't think we do that. I think that is partially because we have some very, very experienced people on the team that have done this before. We have some great advisors. And yeah, we're trying to be laser focused on just executing the stuff that we think we're good at.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, Holger, I really appreciate you doing this. It's been insightful. I mean, I use Foursquare, not regularly. I use it a different way. I use it because I'm getting older to remember where I've been. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, people's personal history is a huge use case, right? You can theoretically keep the check-ins completely to yourself by not befriending anybody, and you will never forget where you've been, in the past. And by the way, I'm not sure if you're using the application, but there's a great app that is built on top of our API called TimeHop. Yeah. That actually sends you an email every morning about the check-ins you've done a year ago. Yep. And I use it all the time, and my wife and I are kind of exchanging like photos of like moments from a year ago, and they're kind of great memories, right? People love that kind of stuff.
Well, I love it. I love it because I start to think about the potential of what you guys are doing. So, Alzheimer's patients. I saw this ability for an Alzheimer patient shoe that is basically a geofence, and I think, boy, wouldn't it be great if you could just do an automatic, with the Foursquare API, automatic check-in, so you would never lose any patients who might have Alzheimer's that are wandering around or happen to be wandering around. I mean, that kind of stuff. When you start to think of the ideas during we're having this conversation, that's what would probably excite me most about the space that you guys are in, the potential of where you could go.
Yeah, no, I think the opportunities to build exciting products on top of our API are endless, right? That is actually probably one of the areas that most excites me, is to see how, I think we have at this point 10,000 plus developers who have built on top of the API, ranging from the very, very large companies like Nokia and Microsoft, who've built like fully fledged Foursquare experiences for their platforms, all the way down to kind of small, scrappy startups, 1 or 2 people in a garage, kind of building an application like there's one thing about kind of a warning system that would send you SMSs when you checked in a place that had like a bad or like low scoring kind of food safety thing. And so those type of things we see all the time. We're really excited about that. We think that companies who have built on top of our platform like Instagram, Path, or some of the more prominent players, that they're getting a lot of value out of our platform, and we love to see that type of usage. And I think that's another thing that people sometimes forget. We are not just a kind of consumer-driven company, but we're also really kind of building a really exciting platform with over 30 million points of interest now globally, where people can check into and that people can leverage via the API.
Man, there's so much more. And I'm going to have you back on, Holger, as things move along, because I definitely look at this and I think there's so much that I left out of this conversation that you just brought up, but we're well past our time. So what I will do is I will invite you back on to have those further in-depth conversations around those things. But I really appreciate you doing this. This has been invaluable for me, and I know that the guys who are watching and the gals who are listening really appreciate you guys you spending your time here with me.
Totally my pleasure, Rob. Thanks so much.
I've been speaking with Holger Ludorf, who's the VP of Mobile and International for a company called Foursquare that you've heard of. Go to Foursquare.com, check out the new services, download the application if you haven't already. I'm pretty sure that you have, and if you haven't, you shouldn't be watching this podcast. That's the way that I think. But I really appreciate those of you who are still watching or listening, wherever you may be, whatever you are doing. Thank you for bringing this into your day. I really appreciate that, and we'll see you next time on Untethered.tv.
Thank you. Bye.